The human crew had been traveling through the quiet reaches of space for weeks. Moving cautiously from one star system to another, Jack Miller, an engineer with a calm and curious nature, walked along the narrow corridors of the exploration vessel, checking readings and making minor adjustments to keep the ship running smoothly. He had always been fascinated by the unknown, and this mission was everything he had dreamed of: an opportunity to meet life forms no human had seen before. It had been a peaceful day aboard the vessel, with soft hums from the engines and the gentle flicker of control panels casting shadows across the room. Jack paused to look out of the small observation window, seeing the pale blue light of a nearby planet. The planet's surface was covered in soft, green, and silver hues, unlike anything on Earth. His excitement grew. This was why humans explored the stars: to discover, to learn, to understand. The communication panel beeped, interrupting his thoughts. "Jack, we're picking up something unusual," said Ben Carter, the navigator, his voice tense but controlled. "It's a signal, but not like anything in our database." Jack moved quickly to the console, analyzing the readings. "It's definitely artificial," he said. "Someone or something is out there." Captain Lily Ross joined them. "Prepare for first contact protocols. We don't know what we're dealing with yet. Stay calm, and remember, we are guests in this system." As they approached the source of the signal, the crew could see a large structure hovering just above the planet's surface. It had smooth, flowing lines, unlike any human-made spacecraft. Its shimmering surface reflected the starlight in colors that shifted with every angle, making it almost impossible to look at directly. Jack felt a rush of awe and nervousness at the same time. Suddenly, the ship's sensors went off in alarm. A gravity disturbance had erupted from the planet below, sending waves that pushed against their vessel. "Brace yourselves," Lily shouted as the ship shook violently. Panels flickered and alarms blared. Jack's hands moved quickly over the control console, trying to stabilize the ship. "We're losing control. Gravity spike is stronger than predicted." The crew fought to keep the vessel steady as the disturbance grew. Just as the ship threatened to be pulled into the planet's atmosphere, a beam of light shot from the alien structure, enveloping the vessel and holding it steady. Jack squinted, realizing that the structure was not hostile. It was assisting them through the hull's transparent sections. Jack saw a figure emerging. She was tall and graceful, with features unlike any humans, yet somehow elegant and familiar. Her skin shimmered in pale hues that seemed to flow like liquid light, and her eyes held a depth that made him pause. She was the source of the signal, the alien princess. Jack instinctively moved to help her when she extended a hand. The princess, whose name he would later learn was Sarathil, had been caught in the same gravity disturbance. She had been exploring near her home when the anomaly struck, and her ship had been damaged. In that moment, humans and aliens were united by circumstance. Jack used a combination of human tools and quick thinking to stabilize her craft. He had never imagined he would be performing such a delicate operation with an alien, yet he felt a strange calm. Sarathel looked at him with cautious eyes, but there was no hostility. Only a shared sense of urgency once the immediate danger passed. The crew docked their vessel with hers, taking careful steps into the alien ship. Jack moved slowly, observing the intricate designs of the walls, the patterns that shifted subtly, as if alive. Sarathil followed him, her presence commanding attention without demanding it. She spoke, her voice musical and calm, though the words were in a language the humans could not understand. A translator device worn by Jack immediately began converting her words into English. "Thank you for saving me," the translation said. "I did not expect your kind to act without thought of self-interest." Jack nodded, his own voice steady but sincere. "We believe in helping when we can. It's part of who we are." They spent the next few hours exchanging information carefully. Jack explained their mission and their peaceful intentions. Sarathel, in turn, shared knowledge of her world, her people, and her role as a princess of a civilization that valued long ceremonial bonds and deliberate decision-making. The humans were fascinated, and Sarathil seemed equally intrigued by their resourcefulness and adaptability. As the day wore on, The crew realized that the energy released during the gravity disturbance had caused a rare, biological reaction within Sarathil's species. She seemed unaware of what had happened, but the subtle changes in her physiology hinted at something extraordinary. Jack noticed the faint glow around her as she moved, the kind of thing that should not have been possible. Yet it was happening. They had saved each other, and in doing so, created a bond neither fully understood. The human crew prepared to leave, thinking their role in the encounter was over. Sarathil stood near the dock, watching them go, her expression unreadable. There was awe, curiosity, and perhaps a hint of something else, though she did not fully comprehend it herself. As the humans departed, Jack could not shake the feeling that something fundamental had changed. The universe suddenly seemed both larger and more intimate, filled with possibilities that went beyond their current understanding. The encounter was over, but the implications were only beginning to unfold. Back on their ship, the crew debriefed, sharing observations and reviewing data. The readings from Sarathil's craft were unlike anything recorded before. Ben Carter shook his head, clearly impressed. "This changes everything," he said. "We've just seen proof that life in the galaxy can be far more complex and connected than we imagined." Jack leaned against the console, thoughtful. "It's not just about technology or power," he said. "It's about understanding, empathy, and the ability to act when it matters. That's what makes humans human." As they continued their journey, the stars seemed brighter, more alive. Every crew member felt a quiet excitement, knowing they had experienced something extraordinary. They had met an alien princess, faced danger together, and survived by relying on courage, ingenuity, and the simple human instinct to help. Little did they know, Sarathil was already feeling the early effects of the rare reaction triggered during their encounter. It was something her people had only spoken of in myths, a phenomenon that occurred once in many lifetimes. The realization would not come immediately, but the consequences of their first meeting were already in motion. The story of humans and aliens, of courage and curiosity, of connections that could cross worlds, had only just begun. And for Jack Miller and the crew, the universe would never feel the same again. Weeks had passed since Jack Miller and his crew had their first encounter with the alien princess. The humans had returned to their base to analyze the data collected during the mission. Unaware of the small but profound change that had already begun in Sarathil's world, she moved with her usual grace among her people. But subtle differences in her energy were noticeable to the scholars who had studied the rare phenomena of her species for decades. Sarathil's advisors had begun to notice that she was not acting entirely like herself. There was a quiet glow in her presence, a gentle warmth that seemed to ripple around her when she moved. The scientists immediately ran tests, their faces betraying both excitement and alarm. They had encountered myths about a rare cross-species reaction in the past. Stories passed down for generations, but none had ever seen it happen. The realization made the princess anxious. She had always been cautious, trained in diplomacy and tradition, and the idea of an unknown process unfolding inside her was both frightening and fascinating. She retreated to the palace's observation garden, a space where the light of her planet's twin suns filtered through delicate crystalline structures. She stared at the horizon, thinking about the human who had saved her life. Jack Miller. His calm, determined nature, his willingness to act without hesitation, had left a deep impression on her. She could not explain why, but there was a pull she felt toward him, something that went beyond simple gratitude. On Earth, Jack and his crew were unaware of what had transpired. They were busy reviewing the mission, trying to understand the alien technology, the strange gravitational anomalies, and the cultural protocols they had observed. Ben Carter, the navigator, was particularly fascinated by the physics involved, constantly scribbling notes and diagrams, while Lily Ross focused on the diplomacy lessons they could take from the encounter. One evening, Jack was sitting in the observation room of their station, looking at the stars, when a secure message arrived. It was from the Galactic Council, a governing body that oversaw interstellar exploration and diplomacy. The message was urgent and clear. Sarathil had experienced an unprecedented biological reaction. and her condition required careful observation and human involvement. The council was concerned that any misunderstanding could lead to conflict. Jack felt a mix of disbelief and responsibility. He had saved her, but he never imagined the consequences could extend this far. The council instructed him to prepare for a confidential mission to Sarathiel's planet to monitor her condition and ensure that both human and alien interests were protected. The journey to her planet was tense but hopeful. Jack, Ben, and a small team of specialists, including Dr. Alice Grant, a biologist, and Lucas Reed, a medical technician, prepared for every scenario. They had trained for first contact, for hostile encounters, for mechanical failures, but this was different. This was personal and delicate, requiring empathy, understanding, and discretion. Upon arrival, the alien world looked familiar, yet changed from Jack's previous visit. The colors were brighter, the air seemed richer, and the movement of the planet's twin suns cast long, dramatic shadows. Sarathiel met them at the docking station, her expression a mixture of curiosity and guarded emotion. Jack noticed a subtle shift in her demeanor, a quiet confidence intertwined with uncertainty. "Jack Miller," Sarathiel said through the translator, her voice carrying a melody that made it sound almost like music. "You have returned. I did not expect your kind to become involved in matters beyond your understanding." Jack nodded, speaking carefully. "We didn't anticipate this either, but we will do everything we can to help. That's what humans do." The days that followed were filled with observation, conversations, and careful scientific analysis. Dr. Grant worked closely with Sarathiel's scholars, comparing human and alien biology, trying to understand the rare reaction that had occurred. Lucas Reed monitored her health constantly, ensuring that every vital sign was recorded and analyzed. Through these interactions, Sarathiel began to see humans differently. She noticed their patience, their willingness to listen and adapt, and their ability to find creative solutions without relying solely on tradition. She was intrigued by Jack's calm presence and his unwavering focus on problem-solving rather than panic. There was an honesty in his actions that she found rare among the political figures of her world. At night, the humans would gather in the observation garden, sharing stories of Earth, of human customs, and of their dreams. Sarathiel listened and asked questions, her curiosity deepening with each conversation. Jack told her about his childhood on Earth, the small town he grew up in, and how his fascination with space had led him to explore the stars. She found his stories grounding, contrast to the grandeur and formality of her palace life, despite the scientific focus of the mission. A subtle tension grew between the human and alien worlds. Sarathiel's advisors were nervous, whispering about the possible consequences of her condition. They feared political backlash, social disruption, and even potential threats to their civilization if the rare reaction became known beyond the palace walls. Jack and the team handled the situation delicately, building trust with Sarathiel and her people. They reassured the advisors that the humans were there to help, not to interfere with tradition or politics. Slowly, the walls of fear and suspicion began to crumble, replaced by cooperation and understanding. One evening, as the twin suns set, casting long streaks of light across the palace gardens, Sarathiel approached Jack. Her expression was thoughtful, almost vulnerable. "I did not expect to feel this," she said softly, her words translated into English. "I do not understand it fully, but there is a connection that I cannot explain. It is unlike anything I have known." Jack met her gaze, keeping his voice steady and gentle. "Connections can be surprising. They don't always follow the rules we expect. Sometimes they just happen. And when they do, we have to face them together." Sarathiel nodded, a faint smile appearing on her face. It was the first time she had shown such an open expression to a human. The moment was quiet but powerful, a bridge forming between two very different species. As days turned into weeks, the team continued their work, documenting every change, every subtle shift in Sarathiel's condition. They discovered that the energy from the previous encounter had initiated a unique biological process that could only be fully understood over time. The reaction was slow and careful, mirroring the deliberate nature of her people. Yet it carried the unexpected adaptability of human influence. Sarathiel found herself reflecting on her life, on the traditions that had shaped her, and on the unexpected lessons she had learned from humans. She realized that while ceremony and history were important, choice and understanding held their own power. The human's ability to act with empathy, to solve problems creatively, and to form bonds across differences fascinated her. Meanwhile, Jack felt the weight of responsibility more than ever. He had always believed in exploration and discovery, but now he understood that their actions could resonate far beyond what they imagined. Every decision mattered. Every interaction could shape the future. The story of Sarathiel's rare condition began to spread slowly among the palace scholars, who were careful to maintain discretion. Whispers of myths once thought impossible were now being studied with scientific rigor. It was a moment where legend and reality converged, a place where humans and aliens could learn from each other without fear. By the end of their stay, Sarathiel and Jack had developed a mutual respect and understanding that transcended their species. They had faced uncertainty together, navigated cultural differences, and discovered that compassion and courage could bridge worlds as the human team prepared to leave. Sarathiel stood at the docking station looking at Jack. There was no fear, no formality, only a quiet acknowledgement of the bond they had formed. She understood that their first encounter had changed something fundamental, and that the future would carry the weight of their choices. Jack felt the same sense of quiet responsibility. They had started something remarkable, a connection that would continue to unfold in ways neither species could fully predict. The universe seemed larger, more intertwined, and filled with possibilities that went beyond exploration and science. It was a future that required courage, understanding, the willingness to face the unknown together. As the ship departed, Jack glanced back at the planet, at Sarathiel standing tall among her people. He knew this was only the beginning of a story that would shape not just their lives, but the lives of those in both worlds. The mission had started with a simple act of help, but it had grown into something extraordinary, a bridge between species, a test of understanding, and a lesson in the power of human empathy. The human team returned to Sarathiel's planet after a short rest, this time with a sense of anticipation rather than anxiety. Jack Miller led the group, feeling a mix of responsibility and curiosity about what they would discover next. He had grown increasingly aware that their presence was shaping events in ways he could hardly predict. There was no danger in the traditional sense, yet the stakes felt higher than any previous mission. As they approached the docking station, Sarathiel was waiting. Her expression was more relaxed this time, though her eyes held a seriousness that matched the significance of the moment. She greeted Jack and his team with a quiet nod, and the translator device captured her words. "Your return brings stability," she said. "We have much to understand together." Jack stepped forward, offering a reassuring smile. "We are here to help and to learn. We'll do everything we can to make sure this situation is handled safely and respectfully." The initial days were focused on careful observation and dialogue. Sarathiel allowed the human specialists access to her personal chambers, the research facilities, and the areas where her people had been monitoring her condition. Jack noticed subtle changes in her energy, a steady hum of light that seemed to radiate from her core. The scientists recorded every detail, fascinated by the way her biology responded to human presence and technology. Sarathiel spent time with Jack alone, walking through the palace gardens, under the soft light of the twin suns. She asked him about his life on Earth, the customs of humans, and how they formed bonds with one another. Jack answered honestly, describing the importance of choice, trust, and empathy in human relationships. He explained that humans often acted not just out of obligation, but because they valued connection and understanding. Sarathiel listened carefully, absorbing every word. She had grown up in a world of rules and ceremonies where actions were measured and carefully controlled. Humans, by contrast, seemed to embrace uncertainty with a calm confidence. There was a freedom in their decisions, a willingness to act despite not knowing the full consequences. It fascinated her. Meanwhile, the human specialists continued their research. Dr. Alice Grant worked closely with alien biologists, comparing physiological responses and energy patterns. They discovered that the rare reaction initiated in Sarathil could potentially have long-term effects on her species if handled properly. Lucas Reed monitored her health constantly, ready to intervene if necessary. Jack coordinated with the alien scholars to ensure that both human and alien interests were respected. One afternoon, Sarathil invited Jack to a ceremonial hall, usually reserved for private meetings of her council. She had made a request that surprised even her advisors. She wanted Jack to observe the council's deliberations. It was a break from tradition, a recognition that humans could offer perspectives that were different but valuable. Jack watched silently as the council discussed her condition and its implications. There were debates about politics, social customs, and potential risks. Some members were cautious, fearing that revealing the situation could destabilize their society. Others were curious, intrigued by the opportunity to learn from humans. Jack realized that this was more than a scientific or diplomatic challenge. It was a test of trust between species. Sarathil's decision to involve Jack began to shift the council's attitudes. They saw how humans approach problems with calm reasoning, empathy, and collaboration. Slowly, skepticism gave way to cautious respect. Jack's presence did not replace their traditions, but it added a new dimension of understanding. At night, the palace gardens became a place for quiet conversation. Jack and Sarathil would walk under the soft glow of the twin suns' fading light, talking about hopes, fears, and the challenges of leadership. Jack shared stories of human history, emphasizing how humans often learn through trial, error, and cooperation. Sarathil shared legends and myths from her people, stories of great leaders and rare phenomena, including the myths that now seemed connected to her condition. Through these conversations, Sarathil began to understand humans more deeply. She realized that their ability to form connections was not bound by ceremony or tradition, but by intention and choice. They acted out of empathy, curiosity, and courage. It was a perspective that challenged her own beliefs, but also opened her mind to new possibilities. The human team also learned from the princess. They saw the depth of responsibility she carried, the careful consideration she gave to every decision, and the strength required to balance tradition with the unknown. Jack admired her resilience and her willingness to face uncertainty with dignity. As the days passed, subtle tensions emerged from outside forces. Rival factions within Sarathil society began to question the growing human influence. Some feared that the humans might disrupt long-held customs or even pose a threat to their civilization. Jack and the team were aware of these undercurrents and took care to respect boundaries while maintaining open communication. Sarathil, however, continued to insist on direct involvement with Jack and the human team. She valued their insight, their calm approach, and their ability to act decisively when necessary. She began to see that humans were not just observers or helpers, they were partners in navigating the unknown. One evening, during a quiet walk through the palace gardens, Sarathil stopped and looked at Jack. "I have been taught to rely on ritual and counsel," she said, "but you have shown me another way. A way that is not bound by fear or ceremony, but by understanding and choice." Jack nodded, his voice steady. "Sometimes the right choice is the one that connects us, that builds trust and understanding. It isn't always easy, but it's worth it." Sarathil smiled faintly, a gesture of both appreciation and newfound confidence. She realized that the bond forming between her and the humans, especially Jack, was more than situational, it was transformative. It had the potential to influence her society, her people, and even the future of interstellar relations. The team continued their work, documenting every observation and ensuring that the process unfolded safely. They developed protocols for monitoring Sarathil's condition, combining human medical techniques with alien knowledge. It was a delicate balance, but one that demonstrated the power of collaboration across species. Throughout this period, Jack and Sarathil's interactions deepened. They shared quiet moments of reflection, discussing not just the science, but the philosophy of life, leadership, and connection. Jack admired her thoughtfulness and her ability to weigh consequences carefully. Serlo appreciated his honesty, his calm problem-solving, and his unwavering commitment to understanding. As the weeks passed, Sarathel's condition continued to evolve slowly, a living testament to the unique interaction between human and alien biology. Scholars from both sides observed the process with a mix of awe and scientific curiosity. It was a rare moment where myth, biology, and diplomacy intersected, creating a scenario that neither species could have. Predicted by the time the human team prepared for their temporary departure, a sense of mutual respect had solidified. Sarathiel walked with Jack to the docking station, her expression calm but reflective. "This journey has taught me much," she said softly. "Not only about myself, but about your kind. There is courage, empathy, and wisdom in your actions that I did not expect." Jack smiled, feeling the weight of their shared experience. "And we have learned from you, too. Leadership, patience, and understanding are qualities that guide your people. We have a lot to take back with us as well." As the ship lifted off, Jack glanced back at the palace, at Sarathiel, standing among her people. He knew this was only the beginning of a relationship that could shape both worlds. The story of connection, understanding, and shared responsibility was far from over. The universe felt both larger and more personal, a place where human empathy and courage could make a difference in ways that were just beginning to unfold. The first contact had evolved into a partnership, a bridge between two species built on trust, curiosity, and the willingness to act together. Jack understood that every decision they made would ripple across time and space, influencing the future in ways they could not yet see. And as the stars passed by their vessel, he felt a quiet excitement for what was to come, knowing that humans had the capacity to change the universe not through force, but through understanding and connection. Life on Sarathiel's planet had settled into a careful rhythm. Jack Miller and his team had returned for an extended stay, and both humans and aliens were learning from one another in ways that were subtle, yet profound. The palace halls were filled with a mixture of curiosity and caution, as scholars and advisors continued to study the rare reaction in the princess, while also navigating the political and cultural challenges that had begun to emerge. There were whispers in the palace corridors, rival factions questioning the humans' involvement. Some believed that allowing Jack and his team such close access could disrupt tradition, or even give humans too much influence over alien affairs. Others were quietly intrigued, realizing that this collaboration might offer solutions that their rigid customs could not achieve. Sarathiel watched these dynamics carefully, understanding that her decisions would affect the perception of both humans and her own people. Jack, aware of these undercurrents, approached the situation with patience. He worked closely with Sarathiel, emphasizing that their purpose was to assist and observe, not to interfere with customs or politics. His calm presence, combined with clear explanations and respect for tradition, gradually earned the trust of key figures within the palace. Dr. Alice Grant continued her research, comparing human and alien biology with meticulous care. Lucas Reed monitored Sarathel's condition, ensuring that any unexpected changes were recorded and managed. Their work was slow and deliberate, but every observation revealed new insights into the rare reaction that had been triggered weeks earlier. It became clear that the process was not harmful, but it required careful handling and understanding during this time. Sarathiel and Jack spent long hours together walking through the palace gardens, discussing ideas and learning from one another. She was fascinated by his stories of Earth, the ways humans face challenges, and how empathy often guided their decisions. Jack admired her thoughtfulness, her ability to consider the consequences of every choice, and her willingness to embrace new perspectives despite the weight of her responsibilities. One evening, the palace was alert with unusual activity. Reports had come in that rival factions outside the palace were preparing to challenge the growing influence of the humans. They feared that the rare reaction in Sarathel could be used as a political tool, or worse, that humans might unintentionally disrupt the delicate balance of their society. The atmosphere was tense. Sarathil called Jack and his team to a secure chamber to discuss the situation. "We cannot allow misunderstandings to escalate," Sarathil said, her voice steady but urgent. "We must protect both my people and our visitors." Jack nodded, formulating a plan. "We can help," he said. "But we need to use strategy, not force. We will need to be clever and discreet, showing that humans are allies, not threats." Together with Sarathil, they developed a series of measures to manage the situation. They organized public demonstrations of cooperation, showing humans and aliens working side by side on scientific and diplomatic projects. They engaged in quiet conversations with key figures, building trust and easing tensions. Their approach was not confrontational. It relied on empathy, transparency, and the human ability to solve problems creatively. Sarathil observed the humans' methods closely. She realized that their strength did not lie in aggression, but in patience, understanding, and adaptability. This perspective challenged the traditional views of her people, who often relied on rigid structures and formal procedures. The humans' willingness to act decisively, yet respectfully, opened new possibilities for her society. In the evenings, Jack and Sarathil continued their walks, discussing not only science and diplomacy, but also philosophy, leadership, and the nature of connection. Sarathil reflected on the lessons she had learned from humans, the value of choice, the importance of empathy, and the power of understanding across differences. Jack shared stories of human resilience, how communities supported each other through adversity, and how compassion could guide difficult decisions. As days passed, the palace factions began to recognize the positive impact of human involvement. They saw that cooperation and mutual respect could resolve tension without conflict. Sarathil's leadership became more confident, formed by both her own wisdom and the insights she gained from observing the humans. Jack and his team continued to support her, providing guidance, scientific expertise, and a steady presence. One morning, an urgent message arrived from one of the outer provinces. A natural disturbance had disrupted several settlements, and the locals were struggling to manage the situation. Sarathil saw an opportunity to demonstrate the benefits of collaboration. She called Jack and the human team to discuss a plan to assist the affected communities. Jack proposed using a combination of human technology and local resources to stabilize the EI settlements and ensure safety. Dr. Grant worked with alien engineers to implement solutions, while Lucas Reed coordinated medical support. Sarathil personally oversaw the efforts, demonstrating leadership and building trust with her people. The operation was a success, easing tensions and showcasing the strength of cooperation. During the mission, Sarathil observed the humans closely. She noted their calm under pressure, their focus on practical solutions, and their ability to communicate effectively across cultures. She realized that humans had a unique ability to turn uncertainty into opportunity, a quality that complemented her own careful approach. Together, they formed a team that was more effective than either species could be alone. In the evenings, after the work was done, Sarathil and Jack would return to the palace gardens. They reflected on the day's events, discussing the lessons learned and the progress made. Sarathil felt a growing respect for the humans, especially Jack, whose steady presence and thoughtful approach had earned her trust. She also felt a personal connection, sense of understanding, and a partnership that was difficult to put into words. The palace scholars continued to study the rare reaction. Noting the ongoing development and its implications, they documented every observation, careful to maintain discretion while sharing findings with Jack and his team. The process was slow, but it was yielding valuable insights into both biology and diplomacy. As the weeks progressed, rival factions outside the palace gradually accepted the human presence. They saw that the collaboration was not a threat, but a source of stability and progress. Sarathil's leadership was strengthened, and her people began to embrace the lessons learned from observing humans in action. Jack and Sarathil spent quiet moments together, reflecting on the journey so far. "We have faced uncertainty together," Jack said one evening, looking at the twin suns setting over the horizon. "And we have learned that understanding, patience, and empathy can change outcomes in ways we might not expect." Sarathiel nodded, her expression thoughtful. You have shown me that connection is more than ceremony or tradition. It is the choices we make, the care we take, and the courage to face the unknown together. Their partnership had grown beyond simple cooperation. It was now a bridge between two worlds, a model of trust and collaboration that could influence both species for generations. The rare reaction in Sarathiel continued its course, a living symbol of the unexpected possibilities that arose from their first encounter, as the human team prepared for a temporary departure to report back to the Galactic Council. Sarathiel stood at the docking station with Jack. There was no fear or hesitation, only mutual respect and understanding. You have done more than assist, she said softly. You have taught me, guided me, and shown the strength of your kind. Oh. Jack smiled, feeling the weight and significance of their shared journey. And you have taught us too, he replied. Leadership, patience, and the ability to navigate challenges with grace. We will carry these lessons back with us. As the ship lifted off, Jack looked back at the palace, at Sarathiel, standing among her people. The experience had changed both worlds. The story of cooperation, empathy, and shared responsibility was far from over. But they had proven that understanding and connection could bridge even the widest gaps. The universe seemed both larger and more personal. A place where humans could influence change not through force, but through compassion, creativity. In courage, the first contact had evolved into a partnership that extended beyond immediate needs. It was now a foundation for a new way of thinking, a model for how species could interact across differences, and a testament to the power of human empathy. Jack understood that their actions had set something in motion that would continue to unfold, shaping relationships, culture, and the future of both worlds. The journey was far from complete, but the path forward was brighter, guided by trust, understanding, and the willingness to face the unknown together. Months had passed since Jack Miller and his team had first arrived on Sarathiel's planet. The rare biological reaction that had begun during their initial encounter was now fully understood by both human and alien scientists. It was a process unlike anything recorded, convergence of human adaptability and alien physiology that had created something extraordinary. Sarathiel's condition had stabilized, and the changes had proven to be entirely safe, even remarkable. The palace was alive with anticipation. Sarathiel's people had grown accustomed to the presence of the humans. Recognizing the value of collaboration and the lessons learned from their interactions, even the rival factions that had once opposed the human involvement now acknowledged that understanding and cooperation could strengthen society rather than weaken it. Jack and his team had spent countless hours in observation, research, and quiet reflection. They had seen firsthand the effects of patience, empathy, and careful problem-solving. It's not just on Sarathiel's condition, but on the broader relationships between species. The humans had become trusted allies, their calm, thoughtful approach bridging divides that tradition alone could not. Sarathiel walked through the palace gardens one morning. Reflecting on the journey so far, she thought about the lessons she had learned, that leadership required courage. That understanding was more powerful than fear, and that connection could shape the future in ways that ceremony and rules alone could not. Her thoughts returned to Jack Miller. His presence had become a source of stability and insight throughout the process. Jack was nearby, observing the data collected from recent tests. When Sarathiel approached him, "The journey has taught me much," she said, her voice calm and sincere. "Not only about the nature of this reaction, but about your kind. Humans have a way of seeing possibilities that we often overlook." Jack looked up and smiled. "And we have learned from you. Leadership, responsibility, and the ability to balance tradition with progress. It has been an extraordinary experience." The palace scholars were preparing a ceremonial acknowledgement of the successful collaboration, a quiet event that celebrated the breakthroughs achieved without compromising cultural values. Sarathiel had insisted that the humans be included not as guests, but as partners in the process. It was a sign of the respect she had gained for their dedication and integrity. When the day arrived, The ceremony was held in a spacious hall with soft light filtering through crystalline windows. Both humans and aliens gathered, observing the ritual with a sense of unity. Sarathel stood at the center, radiant and composed, while Jack and his team were positioned nearby, recognized for their contributions without overshadowing the traditional significance of the event. The ceremony concluded with a symbolic gesture, the presentation of a crystal orb, a token representing unity, understanding, and mutual respect between species. Sarathiel handed the orb to Jack, acknowledging the role humans had played in guiding and supporting her through an unprecedented situation. It was a moment of quiet triumph, a reflection of the trust that had been built over months of careful observation and cooperation. After the ceremony, Jack and Sarathil walked through the palace gardens, reflecting on the journey they had shared. "We have faced uncertainty together," Jack said, looking at the horizon where the twin suns cast a golden light. "And we have learned that connection, empathy, and patience can change outcomes in ways no one expects." Sarathil nodded, her expression thoughtful. "You have shown me that courage is not just about action, but about understanding, listening, and choosing wisely. Your presence has reshaped my perspective and that of my people." The days that followed were filled with continued research and preparation for the next phase of Sarathil's life. Her people began to rewrite some of their laws and customs, inspired by the lessons learned from humans. These changes were not radical, but they reflected a deeper understanding of choice, connection, and the importance of adaptability. Humans had shown that progress did not require abandoning tradition, but rather integrating new insights with respect for history. Sarathil also began to think about the future beyond her own role. She realized that the bond formed with Jack and the human team was more than situational. It had the potential to influence interstellar relations for generations. The rare reaction, once a source of uncertainty, had become a symbol of cooperation and possibility. Jack and his team worked with the palace scientists to develop protocols for ongoing observation, ensuring that any long-term effects would be carefully monitored. They trained local scholars and medical specialists, sharing human techniques adapted to alien biology. The collaboration strengthened the relationship between humans and aliens, creating a foundation for future missions and exchanges. During this period, Jack and Sarathil spent quiet moments reflecting on their shared experiences. They walked through the gardens, discussing philosophy, leadership, and the lessons learned from facing uncertainty. Jack admired her insight and her ability to balance tradition with innovation. Sarathil valued his calm reasoning, his honesty, and his unwavering commitment to understanding as the weeks turned into months. The story of the human-alien collaboration spread, first within the palace and then across her society. Scholars, leaders, and ordinary citizens began to recognize the value of empathy, cooperation, and careful problem-solving. The universe seemed larger, more interconnected, and filled with possibilities that went beyond mere survival. Eventually, the time came for Jack and his team to return to their base. The farewell was quiet but meaningful. Sarathil stood at the docking station, her presence calm and confident. "You have done more than assist," she said softly. "You have shown us a new way to approach challenges and to value connection. We are forever changed by your presence." Jack nodded, feeling the weight and significance of their journey. "And we have learned from you as well. Leadership, patience, and understanding are qualities we will carry back with us. This is not an ending, but the beginning of something greater." As the ship lifted off, Jack looked back at the palace, at Sarathil, standing among her people. The bond formed through months of cooperation and understanding was not something that could be measured or fully explained, but its impact was undeniable. Humans had shown that empathy, courage, and careful observation could influence events across worlds without force. In Sarathil's, people had embraced the lessons with wisdom and grace. The journey back to their base was filled with reflection. Jack and his team discussed the insights gained, the challenges faced, and the importance of human qualities like adaptability, empathy, and trust. They realized that their mission had been more than exploration, it had been a demonstration of how humans could positively influence the universe through connection and understanding. Sarathil, now more confident in her role as a leader, began implementing changes that reflected the lessons learned. She encouraged collaboration, valued empathy, and promoted understanding across differences. The rare biological reaction that had brought humans and aliens together became a symbol, not of uncertainty or fear, but of possibility, trust, and shared growth as the months continued. Jack and Sarathiel maintained correspondence through secure communication channels. They exchanged ideas, shared observations, and continued to learn from one another. Their connection, formed through circumstance and strengthened by mutual respect, became a model for interstellar cooperation. The universe, once vast and unknowable, now seemed filled with opportunities for collaboration, understanding, and shared progress. Jack Miller reflected on the journey with a quiet sense of fulfillment. Humans had the ability to influence change not through power or dominance, but through empathy, courage, and connection. The story of their encounter with Sarathil was a reminder that the smallest acts of understanding could ripple across worlds, shaping the future in ways both profound and lasting. And so, the journey continued, with humans and aliens alike learning from one another, building bridges across cultures, and embracing the unknown with curiosity and care. The first encounter, once a moment of danger and uncertainty, had blossomed into a legacy of cooperation, trust, and hope, a legacy that would shape generations to come. Months had passed since the birth of the child that marked the rare convergence of human and alien life. The palace was alive with a sense of wonder, as scholars, leaders, and ordinary citizens observed a new chapter in their society's history. Sarathil had grown into her role as both a leader and a mother, balancing the responsibilities of her position with the joys and challenges of nurturing a unique life. Jack Miller and his team had remained closely involved, providing guidance, support, and friendship as the child developed. The child, named Lyra, possessed traits that were a blend of human adaptability and alien resilience. Her skin shimmered softly in the light, her eyes held a depth of understanding beyond her years, and she seemed unusually aware of her surroundings. Scholars studied her growth with a mixture of awe and scientific curiosity, documenting every milestone. While ensuring her environment remained nurturing and safe, Jack had become a steady presence in Lyra's life, acting as a mentor and protector, not out of obligation, but because he felt a profound connection to both the child and Sarathil. He often spent time in the palace gardens, teaching Lyra simple human concepts, sharing stories of Earth, and encouraging her to explore her surroundings with curiosity and care. Sarathil watched these interactions with a quiet smile. Noting the unique bond forming between human and child, the palace scholars continued their research, fascinated by the ways Lyra's biology demonstrated traits from both species. Dr. Alice Grant collaborated with alien biologists, developing protocols for monitoring Lyra's health and development, while respecting her individuality. Lucas Reed provided medical guidance, ensuring that both human and alien needs were met. The team worked closely with Sarathil to maintain a balance between scientific observation and nurturing care. Life in the palace was filled with small moments of discovery. Lyra would often run through the gardens, her laughter echoing under the twin suns. She learned to manipulate small amounts of energy unique to her alien heritage, while also displaying human creativity and problem-solving skills. Jack marveled at her abilities, realizing that she represented a bridge not just between species, but between worlds, cultures, and perspectives. Sarathil found herself reflecting on the journey that had led to this point. The initial encounter with Jack, the rare biological reaction, and the months of collaboration had changed her understanding of leadership, empathy, and the possibilities of connection. She realized that the lessons learned from humans' patience, adaptability, and empathy were just as valuable as the traditions of her own people. She was determined to guide Lyra in a way that honored both her heritage and the opportunities that humans had shown were possible. As the seasons changed, The palace began to embrace a new philosophy of cooperation and shared learning. Scholars from across the planet and visiting humans collaborated on projects that explored science, culture, and diplomacy. They demonstrated that the integration of diverse perspectives could lead to innovation, understanding, and progress without conflict. Lyra became a living symbol of this philosophy, inspiring others to embrace curiosity and openness. One morning, Sarathiel called Jack and the human team to the palace observatory. She had been reviewing reports and wanted to discuss the next steps for Lyra's development. "She is extraordinary," Sarathiel said, her tone a mixture of pride and concern. "But we must ensure that she grows with understanding, empathy, and resilience. She is the bridge between our worlds, and her path will shape the future."
Jack nodded thoughtfully.
"We will guide her, but we also need to allow her to learn, explore, and make choices. That is how humans grow, and it seems to suit her as well." Together, they developed a plan that combined human and alien methods of education, exploration, and mentorship. Lyra would receive guidance from both species, learning the strengths and values of each, while also being encouraged to develop her own identity. It was a careful balance, designed to nurture her potential without imposing limitations. As the days progressed, Lyra's abilities became more pronounced. She demonstrated remarkable adaptability, solving problems with creativity and insight. Her interactions with humans and aliens alike revealed an innate understanding of cooperation, empathy, and communication. Scholars observed her with amazement, noting that she embodied the best qualities of both species while also displaying individuality and curiosity. Sarathiel spent time reflecting on her own role as a mother and leader. She realized that the lessons learned from humans had reshaped her approach to leadership, emphasizing collaboration, empathy, and the value of diverse perspectives. She shared these insights with her advisors, encouraging them to embrace change while maintaining respect for tradition. The palace gradually became a place where innovation and wisdom coexisted harmoniously. Jack found himself increasingly invested in Lyra's development, not just as a mentor, but as someone who had witnessed